Have you ever noticed that it is in silence that anxiety screams loudest? You're alone. The world outside keeps spinning. The notifications stop. The voices fall silent. And suddenly, you hear, not an external sound, but something inside you. An uncomfortable noise like a revving engine that won't stop. It's anxiety. She doesn't ask permission. She invades. She screams. She presses her chest. She fills the mind with unanswered questions. And the most ironic thing? It's when you finally find some silence that it appears most strongly. Have you noticed this? Jordan Peterson often says that what you need most is where you least want to look, and silence is that place. Because silence exposes what the rush of the world tries to hide, your unresolved pain, that feeling of not knowing who you are without the opinions of others, the discomfort of being alone without distractions, the pain of realizing that you've built an entire life trying to escape yourself. Anxiety doesn't come out of nowhere. She is a sign, a warning, a mirror, and the first reflex she shows is the fear of being alone, but not just any loneliness. We are talking about existential loneliness, that feeling of being surrounded by people and still feeling empty inside, of not having anyone to really talk to, of not feeling like I belong anywhere, waking up every day with a weight on your chest, and going to bed every night with the feeling that something is missing. You might think this emptiness is because you're single, or because you lost someone, or because no one understands you. But according to Peterson, a human being's greatest fear is not being alone. It's being with themselves and not liking what they find. Anxiety arises when you distance yourself from who you really are. And the more you try to avoid this internal confrontation, the more it increases. Because she won't leave until she's heard. She wants to show you something you've ignored for too long. Imagine for a moment that your anxiety is a child, scared, desperate for attention. Every time you try to shut her up with distractions, she screams louder. Every time you pretend it doesn't exist, it scratches you inside. What she wants is to be heard, not judged, not repressed. Yes, yes, yes. And here's the crux. You won't free yourself from anxiety by running away from it. You'll free yourself by accepting it. And accepting is not the same as resigning. Acceptance is the bravest act you can do. It is looking in the mirror of silence and saying, I'm scared, but I'm here. I feel lost, but I won't run away anymore. I'm anxious, but I'm not defined by it. Jordan Peterson teaches that the hero is the one who voluntarily walks into chaos, and anxiety is your chaos. Silence is your portal. You've been running around trying to escape the pain, but the time has come to stop, to look at, to listen, because it is in this space twice between pain and listening that you will find yourself again, not like someone broken, but as someone willing to rebuild. And it all begins when you allow yourself to be silent and listen to what your soul has been trying to say for so long. You don't run away from anxiety, you just postpone it. Today, most people don't face their anxiety. They distract her, they hide behind screens, conversations, obligations. But do you know what happens when the distraction passes? She comes back. She always comes back. And she comes back stronger. Jordan Peterson says, avoiding suffering doesn't eliminate it, it just turns it into a hidden monster. And that's exactly what anxiety becomes when you try to run away from it. An invisible but increasingly powerful monster. You pile up unresolved pain, unacknowledged fear, unspoken insecurity, until it explodes. In a crisis, in a collapse, in a moment when everything stops. The big lie of modern society is this: you don't have to deal with this right now. Distract yourself, work more, go out with someone, buy something. But none of these strategies address the root cause. At most, they anesthetize, and all anesthesia has a price. When it wears off, the pain returns even more acutely. How many times have you woken up and gone straight to your cell phone? Not to get informed, but to escape from what you feel. How many times have you left the house with headphones on just so you don't hear your own thoughts? How many conversations have you had that meant nothing, just to avoid facing the void? These escapes are common and understandable, but they are also treacherous. They lull you into immediate relief, but they push you further and further away from yourself. And little by little, you start living your whole life trying not to feel. But those who live trying not to feel are also no longer able to connect with what is good. He loses his joy, his passion, his presence, and he becomes someone functional, but emotionally empty. Peterson says that order is born from the confrontation with chaos, and it is your responsibility to face what is disorganized within you, not because it's easy, but because the alternative is the slow destruction of your own soul. You don't need to understand everything now, but you need to stop hiding. You need to recognize that these escapes, however justified they may be, do not make you free. They make you hostage to your own pain. Think for a moment. What if, instead of running away, you took a step towards anxiety? What if, instead of trying to distract yourself, you put yourself in the role of observer? Not the critic, not the judge, but the listener, the one who says, "Okay, anxiety, you showed up. What are you trying to show me today?" This simple gesture of not running away is already a revolutionary act, because it breaks the cycle of repression, denial, internal punishment, and it begins to create a new path, that of integration. When you understand that running away is a lie, an emotional trap, you begin to reclaim your power. You stop being a victim of your symptoms, and he begins to become the author of his reconstruction. You can keep running, but one day you will realize anxiety is not behind you. She's in, and wherever you go, she goes with you, until the day you stop and listen and understand. And when that happens, the fear will subside, because nothing is scarier than something that has been ignored for too long. But when you look, when you stare, anxiety transforms. She stops being a monster and begins to be a messenger. Anxiety is not the enemy. It's a cry for help that no one taught you to hear. You grew up hearing that feeling too much was weakness, that crying was drama, that showing distress was a sign that you were losing control. So you learned to hide, swallowing tears, camouflaging the pain with a smile, pretending everything was fine, when inside it felt like it was going to explode. And that's where the anxiety cycle begins. You feel it, try to hide it. Your body screams louder, because the body doesn't lie. And what you don't express emotionally, he turns into symptoms, palpitations, shortness of breath, nausea, mental confusion, muscle tension, insomnia. Jordan Peterson explains that the emotion you ignore becomes the tyrant of your mind. And anxiety is exactly that, a legitimate emotion, ignored for so long that it turns into an internal tyrant. Not because he wants to destroy you, but because she wants to be heard. Have you ever tried listening to what your anxiety is telling you? Have you ever stopped to think about where it really comes from? Because it's not about the traffic, the deadline, what the person said. It's about an emotional story you've been carrying for a long time. Fear of not being enough, fear of losing control, fear of being abandoned, fear of failure. Anxiety reveals the places where you are still vulnerable. And this, contrary to what you were taught, it's not weakness, it's humanity. It's a map, a sign that there is a part of you that needs acceptance, not judgment. But here's the hard truth. As long as you continue to treat your anxiety like an enemy, it will act like one. As long as you keep trying to beat her with force, discipline, or distraction, she will resist. Because anxiety only calms when you treat it with respect. And respect starts with listening. Now stop for a moment and take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you can. Feel what's inside now. Are you afraid? Are you distressed? Is there any confusion? You don't need to understand everything right away, but you can start by recognizing it's here, and I'm going to stop fighting it. If this is touching you in any way, subscribe and leave your like. This makes this video reach someone who may be desperate right now, and you will have been a part of it. Coming back, Peterson teaches that the path to balance begins when you stop running away and start talking to what you feel. You need to learn to walk with your anxiety, not against it. Understanding that it is part of your human experience, not a flaw, and instead of trying to eliminate it, what you need is to learn from it. She's there for a reason, and maybe, just maybe, what she wants to show you is exactly this, that there is a part of you that has been silenced for a long time, and now he wants to breathe, wants to be seen, wants to be loved. You're not afraid of loneliness. You're afraid of not knowing what to do with it. Have you ever been surrounded by people and still felt empty in your chest? Have you ever looked around, seen everyone laughing, and felt out of place? Have you ever been silent for a few minutes and started to feel suffocated? This is no coincidence. It's a symptom, a sign that you are not at peace with your own company. And this is perhaps one of the greatest modern fears, being alone and not knowing who you are when no one is looking. Jordan Peterson teaches that loneliness is inevitable and necessary, but the problem is that almost no one has been taught how to deal with it. Most people spend their lives trying not to be alone, always in a group, always on call, always with noise, because silence is uncomfortable, because silence shows what you have hidden from yourself. The fear of being alone is actually the fear of facing yourself, realizing how much you depend on others to validate who you are, of realizing that your identity was built more to please than to exist. It is worth noting that when everything falls silent, what remains is the echo of your own pain, and that's why anxiety grows in loneliness. She finds space. She fills the void with racing thoughts. She fills the silence with unprocessed doubts and fears. But look, this is not a punishment. It's an opportunity, a chance to reconnect with what was forgotten, yourself. Peterson states that solitude is the field where the soul grows, if you have the courage to stay there. It's not easy, but it's liberating, because when you stop fighting loneliness, it transforms. It stops being a dark hole, and it starts to become a fertile space, an inner temple where you can hear what you never had the time or courage to hear. How many times have you connected with someone just to not be alone? How many decisions have you made out of fear of losing a bond? How many parts of yourself have you silenced just to be accepted? Loneliness forces you to face it, to see your wounds, to recognize their masks, questioning who you would be if you weren't trying to fit in all the time. And that's precisely why she's so scary. She reveals. She's naked. It brings you face to face with your truth. And if you're not prepared, it crushes you. But if you are willing, it rebuilds you. You need to start becoming a good friend to yourself. And that takes practice. It requires time with you. It demands silence, not as punishment, but as a gateway. You can start small, 5 minutes without a cell phone, a walk alone, observing your thoughts, a moment of internal listening before sleeping. Because the more you know yourself, the less afraid you are of being alone. And the more comfortable you become with your presence, the freer you become. Remember, being alone is not being lonely. To be alone is to be whole. And anxiety just needs to know that you are there, not trying to escape, not trying to fill the void with anything, but there, with you. Because at the end of the day, the most important relationship in your life, it's who you become when no one is looking. Your body speaks the truth your mind tries to hide. Have you ever felt your heart race for no apparent reason? Have you ever had that suffocating feeling like you're about to lose your breath? Or maybe a tension in your neck, a knot in your stomach, an urge to run away, but not knowing where to? This is not weakness. This is your body talking. And unlike your mind, your body doesn't lie. Jordan Peterson says that when you ignore the truth, it manifests as chaos. And often, this chaos first appears in the body, because he is the most honest messenger you have. He doesn't calculate, he doesn't postpone, he doesn't disguise. It just shows. It shows in the form of pain, in tension, in symptoms that seem uncontrollable. And what you call an anxiety attack is actually your body trying to save you. It's him screaming, "Stop ignoring me. I can't carry it all alone anymore." The mind can make excuses. You can pretend that everything is under control. You can say that it's just stress, that it will pass. But the body does not negotiate. He feels, he stores, he discharges, and when you don't pay attention, he turns up the volume. Think about it. Every physical symptom of anxiety is a metaphor. Shortness of breath, the weight of a life you can't breathe fully. Tachycardia, your heart trying to race faster than you can keep up. The knot in your stomach, swallowed emotions that were never digested. Muscle tension, the body ready to fight or flee even when there's no real danger. Peterson teaches that the body is an ally in the search for truth. In other words, your symptoms are not enemies. They are guides. They are pointing to something inside you that needs to be looked at. And the sooner you understand this language, the sooner you will transform your relationship with anxiety. But how do you start listening to your body? First, stop treating him like an adversary. He is not cheating on you. He is protecting you from the lie you tell yourself every day. Second, observe. Instead of just despairing when the crisis comes, write it down. When does it start? What were you thinking? Where exactly do you feel the tension? This simple practice creates awareness, and awareness is the first step to freedom. Third, give thanks. Yes, thank you. When your heart starts racing, say, "Thank you for letting me know something is wrong." When your stomach tightens, say, "I hear you." This gesture changes your internal posture, from victim to protagonist, from someone at war with their own body to someone in alliance with it. Peterson would say, "The burden doesn't disappear, but you become stronger to carry it." And listening to your body is exactly that, strengthening your relationship with your own inner life. Because ignoring the signs only leads to more chaos, but welcoming brings order. Now imagine how your life would change if, instead of seeing anxiety as an enemy, you treated it as a teacher, a strict, demanding teacher, but who wants to show you where you need to grow. You would stop panicking at every symptoms and start asking, "What does this want to teach me now?" Take a deep breath. Place your hand on your chest. Feel your heart. He is not against you. He is with you. And if you have the courage to listen, you will discover that anxiety is not a monster. It's just the most intense way your soul has found to ask for attention. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to walk even when afraid. Have you ever waited for anxiety to go away before taking action? Maybe you've been putting off an important conversation, failed to accept an invitation, avoided a challenge, all because he thought, "When I'm not anxious, then I'll do it." But the truth is harsh. That day will never come. Anxiety doesn't suddenly disappear like a passing storm. She remains, and life doesn't wait. Jordan Peterson teaches that you must not wait until you are ready to act. You must act to become ready, and that changes everything. Because it means that courage is not born of comfort. Courage is born from the decision to move forward even when your heart races, even when your body trembles, even when your mind screams at you to give up. And every step, even small, builds new confidence in you. Not the confidence of someone who doesn't feel fear, but the confidence of someone who discovered that they can continue despite him. You need to understand, anxiety is not the end of the road. She is the gateway to growth. And only those who choose courage cross this portal. Standing still, waiting to feel good to live, is the biggest trap, because it will never happen. What changes your life is not waiting for fear to pass. It's getting up with him, looking him in the eye and saying, "I'm going anyway." Peterson would say, you have to be strong enough to carry yourself. And carrying yourself includes carrying your anxiety, not as a paralyzing weight, but as a reminder that you are alive, sensitive, awake. Yes, living is heavy, but if you have the courage to bear that weight, you will discover strengths you never knew existed. Think about it. Every time you face anxiety, you become a different person, stronger, more aware, freer. And little by little, what once seemed impossible becomes just difficult, and the difficult with practice becomes possible, and the possible with persistence becomes natural. Now, a truth that no one likes to hear. Courage hurts. It demands sacrifice. It puts you in front of what you fear most. But what hurts more? Facing this pain now or continuing to be trapped in a life that doesn't belong to you? Peterson talks about responsibility. And taking responsibility for your life also means taking responsibility for your anxiety. It is not your fault, but how you deal with it, yes, that's your responsibility. If this message is making sense to you, subscribe and leave your like. This is not just a mechanical gesture. It's a way to spread this content to someone who might be desperate right now. And you can be that bridge for that person to find relief. Coming back. When you choose courage, you don't eliminate fear, but it redefines your relationship with him. You stop being a victim and become a warrior. Not the warrior who never feels fear, but the warrior who feels fear and yet moves forward. And that's what transforms you. Not the absence of anxiety, but the presence of courage. Not the promise of a life without fear, but the decision to live in spite of it. And with every courageous choice, you send yourself a message. I can do it. I am capable. I am not a hostage to my anxiety. That is the choice that lies before you now. And only you can decide. The part of you that fears you the most is the same part that guards your strength. Carl Jung, a central reference for Jordan Peterson, said that every human being carries a shadow within them. This shadow is made up of everything you have rejected, hidden, or tried to deny about yourself. Your fears, your insecurities, your traumas, your guilt, your repressed anger. Everything you believed you couldn't show the world, you buried in the shadows. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The shadow doesn't disappear because you pretend it doesn't exist. It remains within you. And the more you deny it, the more power it gains. And anxiety is often the voice of your shadow trying to be heard. Jordan Peterson puts it simply, the shadow contains what you need most, but fear most. This means that your anxiety is not just a chemical problem or a random reaction of the brain. It can be the symbolic expression of something much deeper, the part of you that you haven't accepted, the version of you that was silenced, the piece of truth you hid to survive. Think about how many times you felt angry but suppressed it because you couldn't show it. How many times have you felt sadness but swallowed it because you had to be strong? How many times have you wanted to say no but said yes because you didn't want to displease? All of this was accumulating, and now it appears as anxiety. Not because you are weak, but because you are human. And the human who doesn't listen to his shadow gets sick. The encounter with the shadow is painful. It's like opening a dark basement full of things you've left there for years. It hurts because you discover parts of yourself that you'd rather forget. But it is also liberating, because in that basement are your weapons, your hidden courage, its authenticity stifled, your unlived truth. Peterson would say, true strength comes when you integrate the monster you carry within. It's not about destroying the shadow. It's about integrating it. Recognize that you are also fear, but you are also courage. It's also vulnerability, but it's also power. It is also fragility, but it is also resilience. A powerful exercise is to begin talking to your anxiety as if it were a scared child. Close your eyes and imagine. Your anxiety is not a monster trying to destroy you. She is a small child crying in the dark, asking to be heard. If you yell at her, she cries more. If you ignore it, it screams louder. But if you welcome her, if you come closer and say, I'm here, she starts to calm down. And little by little you realize that what seemed like an enemy was just a part of you asking for love. This is the encounter with the shadow, not a fight, but a reconciliation. Not a fight to win, but an embrace to integrate. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe your anxiety is the most honest part of you? Because she doesn't accept masks. She can't stand falsehood. It only manifests when something within you is not aligned with your truth. She won't let you sleep peacefully until you face what needs to be faced. And it is in this confrontation, painful but necessary, that transformation is born. Anxiety is no longer an enemy and becomes a guide. The shadow ceases to be a weight, and it becomes strength. You are only truly free when you no longer have to run away from yourself. Many people believe that freedom is doing what you want, when you want. Travel, go out, conquer, buy, have financial independence. And yes, all of this can bring a feeling of freedom. But none of these achievements eliminate the inner emptiness, because true freedom is not outside, it is inside. Jordan Peterson explains that the biggest prison is not the external one, but the internal one. And that's exactly what anxiety reveals. The invisible bars you've built yourself. Bars made of fear, of insecurity, from inner voices that repeat, you can't, you're not enough. These voices are like chains that keep you trapped, even when everything seems normal on the outside. You can be surrounded by people, living a seemingly stable life, and still feel trapped, imprisoned by the mind that does not rest, for the heart that races, for the thoughts that never stop. Anxiety is, in a way, a call for you to notice these currents. It points with force to the places where you have not yet freed yourself. And the path to inner freedom begins when you stop fighting what you feel and start listening. Think about it. What in you is asking for acceptance, not judgment? What part of you have you tried to bury, but it always comes back in the form of symptoms? What wound are you afraid to revisit, but which never heals because it remains open in silence? Freedom is not the absence of pain. Freedom is being able to look at pain without letting it dictate who you are. It's being able to feel anxiety without just identifying with it. It is being able to remain silent without despairing at the echo of one's own mind. Peterson would say, "You don't achieve freedom by eliminating chaos, you achieve it by learning to walk within it." This means you don't have to wait for anxiety to go away to live. You need to learn to live in spite of it. And the more you do this, the more you realize that it doesn't control you. She is present, but she does not own you. It manifests itself, but does not define its identity. A simple practice to experience this inner freedom is intentional solitude. Not the loneliness of despair, but the conscious choice to be with yourself. Turn off your cell phone, take a deep breath, be silent for a few minutes without distractions. At first, it will be uncomfortable. The mind will want to escape. The body will complain. But over time, you begin to realize that you are not a hostage to the outside noise. You can be with yourself and be at peace. And that's the true sign of freedom, when you no longer need to run. Don't run away from sensations. Don't run away from thoughts. Do not run away from your own presence. Imagine your mind is like a house. For a long time, you locked certain rooms because you were afraid of what you would find inside. But living with locked doors is not living free. Freedom only happens when you open each one of them, go in and turn on the light. It's painful at first, but necessary, because in the end, this house is yours, and you deserve to inhabit it entirely. When you stop running away from yourself, anxiety loses its power, not because it disappears, but because you are no longer scared of it. It appears, you recognize it, breathe it, and move on. And that is freedom, not depending on being well to live, but living, even when it's not okay. This is the freedom that no one can take away from you, the freedom that comes from within, the freedom to be whole with yourself. You can either continue to believe the voice that paralyzes you, or create a new one that propels you. Anxiety has a curious power. It creates a narrative, a story you tell yourself every day. And this story usually says things like, "You won't be able to handle it. You will fail. You are not enough." These phrases echo like an invisible mantra that weakens with every step. But what few realize is that these voices don't come out of nowhere. They were planted by experiences of rejection, by words that hurt, by situations that marked you. Maybe a teacher who told you you weren't capable. Maybe a relationship that made you believe you were worthless. Maybe a childhood where you weren't heard. These seeds germinated, and today they grow as automatic thoughts. And the more you listen to them, the more they gain strength, until you start to believe they are your identity. But they are not. They are just echoes of the past. And what you need to learn, and Jordan Peterson emphasizes this, is that the story you tell yourself shapes the life you build. If you don't change the narrative, you're stuck in the same prison. If you don't choose a new voice, you continue to obey the same inner tyrant. But you can change. You can create a new voice. A voice that doesn't deny anxiety, but doesn't bow to it either. A voice that says, "I feel scared, but I keep going. I feel fragile, but I carry on. I'm not perfect, but I'm capable." This voice does not come out of nowhere. It is born from practice. Every time you act despite anxiety, you send yourself a message. Every time you face a small fear, you prove that you are stronger than you thought. And over time, this new narrative begins to take root. You start to hear yourself differently, and life begins to change from the inside out. If this message is resonating with you, subscribe and leave your like. This may seem simple, but it is a powerful act, because it helps this video reach someone who might be believing the worst voice in their head right now. And you can be the reason that person finds hope. Coming back, Peterson teaches that it is not enough to eliminate the lie. You need to replace it with truth. This means that it is not enough to just try to silence negative thoughts. You need to give yourself a new inner structure. You need to start consciously and repeatedly affirming what is true about yourself. And here's a simple, yet life-changing truth. You faced pain you thought you couldn't bear. and you're still here. You've survived days when you thought you couldn't handle it, and you kept going. This proves that you are stronger than the voice of anxiety wants you to believe. Creating a new inner voice isn't about pretending everything is okay. It's not about repeating empty phrases in front of the mirror. It's remembering, with sincerity, the times when you were stronger than you imagined. It's recognizing that your story isn't just made up of falls, but also of resistance. It's allowing yourself to look at yourself not just as a victim, but as a protagonist. And little by little, anxiety loses ground. Because every time she comes up with her old narrative, you already have an answer. You don't shut up. You don't give up. You speak louder. I am not defined by fear. I am defined by the choices I make in the face of it. This is the new inner voice. Not the one that paralyzes you, but the one that frees you. Not the one that weakens you, but the one that lifts you up. Not the one that repeats the pain of the past, but the one that builds the future you deserve to live. The hero's journey begins the moment he decides to stop running. You spent entire chapters hearing about acceptance, shadow, courage, and freedom. But none of this will make sense if it doesn't become a decision. And this decision is simple to say, but difficult to live. Remain. Stay in the face of anxiety. Remain in the face of silence. Stand in the face of loneliness. Because it's only when you stay that you discover you weren't fighting an enemy, but reconnecting with yourself. Jordan Peterson often says that life is suffering, but within suffering there can be meaning. This means you won't eliminate pain, you won't extinguish anxiety, you won't create a perfect, flawless existence, but you can choose to stay. And by staying, discovering that fear was not the end. It was the beginning of a new story. When you run away, anxiety grows. When you fight it, it gets stronger, but when you stay, it transforms. She loses the power to control you, because you are no longer a hostage. You don't run, you don't hide, you don't get lost. You stare, you breathe, you follow. This is the hero's call, not to run from the dragon, but to face it. And as Peterson would say, the gold is hidden where you least want to look. The gold in your life is hidden behind what you fear most, anxiety itself. And if you have the courage to stay, you will discover that anxiety was not an eternal prison, but a passage to freedom. Think about how many times you almost gave up on yourself. How many times did you believe you wouldn't be able to handle it? And yet it remained. You are here, and that's proof that you're stronger than you think. But the decision to stay needs to be made daily. It's not a choice made once and forgotten. It's a posture. Every day that anxiety appears, you choose to stay. Every silence that bothers you, you choose to remain. Every fear of being alone, you choose to remain. And little by little, permanence becomes strength, and strength becomes freedom. You don't have to wait for the perfect life anymore. No need to run to distractions anymore. You no longer need to hide from your own shadow. Everything you need is here, now, in the decision to stay. If this message made sense to you, subscribe and leave your like. This isn't just about supporting the channel. It's a real way to spread comfort to anyone who might be in crisis right now. With a simple gesture, you can be the reason someone finds hope today. Coming back. Now the invitation is direct. Stop waiting for anxiety to go away to live. Stop waiting until you're ready to start. Life is happening now, and the choice before you is clear. Keep running, or stay. Stay strong. Stay with faith. Stay even when you're trembling, even when you're insecure, even when you're afraid, because it is in permanence that you will discover your strength, and it is in permanence that you will find the freedom you have always sought. Remember, you are not alone on this journey, but the final decision, to stay, is yours alone, and today could be the first day of a new life.